What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 72. Long time no see. And as you can see by the camera setup, I am all by myself. I am solo for this episode of the podcast. So there's a lot that's going on slightly behind the scenes, and I guess I will fill you guys in just a tad. But yeah, I know. Sorry about last week. We did not post. Riley was busy, could not get the chance to film, and I didn't have anybody as replacement. This week, this episode's obviously coming out 2 days late, and it's not going to be very long. I'll tell you guys that right now. Riley was again busy this weekend. I mean, holidays are coming up. Things are going on. He's been busy with work. He plays basketball basically on the side, so he actually has stuff going on during the week and all that stuff. I couldn't get a guest. I was going to get Bailey on. I was going to get my sister on. She hadn't been on the podcast about 6 months, so I thought I'd get her on since she's home. But she had her wisdom teeth removed this week, so there's just been a lot going on. So let's see what's happened. How could I catch you guys up a bit on what's happening? I guess first of all, let me just go ahead and start the podcast by saying thank you for everyone that has subscribed over the past month and a half. We are at, I think, 196 subscribers. We're 4 away from 200, and that's crazy to think, considering we did our last live stream just a little over a month ago. I think it was November 3rd, and at the time, we were sitting at like 100 and I think 11 or less, and we were doing that to celebrate 100 subscribers, so we're damn near to 200. And so I appreciate your guys' support. I love that you guys are enjoying some of the shorts. Some of the shorts, at least in comparison for us, have reasonably gone viral, even though in comparison to actual viral content, not at all. But I appreciate every viewer that's out there. I don't care negative or positive comments. I'm just glad that you guys are appreciating it. And I think a lot of it was really fun and funny from the live stream. So for you guys that didn't tune in, that was from our first live stream. You can go back and watch it. A lot of those are just weird random clips that we got throughout. That's been a lot of our shorts recently because we had so much footage that we could use trying to find some of the funniest instances and situations that happened that night. But speaking of live streams, we are actually doing another live stream next Friday in exactly a week on December 22nd. I think we're probably going to shoot for starting at 7:15 EST, and we're going to have the same guests. They actually came to me saying, when are we going to do another one? So that's kind of the game plan. Riley might be showing up just a tad late, but same people are going to be there, plus another one, Kelvin, the one that was on the last episode that you guys had seen, episode 71. And we're going to change up the setting. We're actually going to be in my living room, so we'll make that different. We're hopefully going to be using lav mics. I got to do some testing with that this weekend and make sure that's all set up. So be sure to tune into that whenever that's happened. It will be posted probably on the social medias, on YouTube, all this stuff, so you guys know when it's happening. I hope you guys tune in. I think it'll be a fun night, and I can't wait to do it again, and I hope you guys do watch because the last one was very interesting to say the least, so I hope you guys do enjoy. We have a few things planned. It's probably going to be like more of a holiday Christmas episode, so we'll kind of see what all we do with that, but I'm super excited for it, and I hope you guys will be too. But no, so yeah, Riley's kind of been on a hiatus. Technically, the last time he recorded a podcast, we were in here, it was probably mid-November, so it's kind of crazy to think about. It's been about a month. I haven't even seen him in a while, just because of situations. We didn't talk about it on the last last podcast. I was on vacation, so we pre-recorded. I was in Gatlinburg for a week, the longest but and most expensive vacation I've been on in my entire life. But it was a lot of fun. We rented a cabin out. I had whole family there, family from Florida. There was like 23 of us in this one cabin. It was a lot. It was a big cabin though, so it was okay. A lot of kids, but I had a great time. It was a lot of fun with family. We did some mountain coasters, did some other stuff down there. It was a lot of fun. Played some mini golf because I had to work on my putting game. No, it was a great time. It was, thinking about it, honestly, doing it all, it was probably one of the most present weeks I've had in a long time, and I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on. I think, honestly, part of it was just so much was going on. Part of it was being around kids, me being the oldest cousin, kind of getting roped into that, hanging out with the adults, doing whatever, playing cards, watching movies, just stuff like that. I was barely on my phone all week. The only thing I did that week was post shorts for you guys. And luckily, I already had those uploaded, but I just posted them and got them scheduled for you guys and posted them. And I think that week we got like 14 subs that day, or that week in general. So I hope you guys all had a very great Thanksgiving. Christmas is right around the corner. I mean, I have my family Christmas in 2 days. I still got to do Christmas shopping and a bunch of stuff, but I love the holiday season. So I think we will probably have a Christmas episode either next week or obviously the live stream, or the day after, not day after, but 2 days after Christmas for that week's episode. We're probably going to do a more holiday themed episode, just for the spirit of Christmas. I love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday. I think it's most people's. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was really weird to kind of unwind and not be on my phone. Like, I didn't watch hardly nothing. I wasn't even on social media hardly. Besides that stuff, I mean, I watched a tad bit of YouTube maybe when I went to bed. And it was just kind of crazy to be present. I almost kind of didn't realize I wasn't on my phone that much. I didn't listen to any podcasts, which I typically consume constantly. So it was a lot of fun to kind of disconnect. And I don't think that is one thing in particular. Kids, people, anybody nowadays does a lot, but especially someone my age, someone in their early to mid, like early 20s, late teens. You don't necessarily get that chance to really just completely disconnect. I might even throw up a few pictures just of the view of the cabin. It was amazing. I was on the top floor, had this balcony view, and just every morning just being able to walk out there and just look over the mountains was so amazing. The one thing I didn't get to do, sadly, was hiking, which I really wanted to, but it was a lot of fun either way. But it's so crazy to disconnect because I don't think a lot of people do it nowadays. I kind of want to do it more often every now and again, like, because I feel like in certain instances I could be more productive. Sometimes I do need my phone to be productive, so that does kind of suck. But it's just, we get so connected to our phones, and it's just a very, very interesting thing to actually disconnect for a while, and I don't think anybody does it. It's kind of like when someone does like a dry January or something. Like, it's not something you do often, but it's nice sometimes just to cut back on things and usage of something you consume, possibly to cope or just kind of self-entertain and kind of, I guess, mentally escape. And I realize that there's times I do that too much. I mean, I did that I never talked about this, but I did that all through high school. Like, YouTube, and that's why I did this. YouTube was my thing. Like, I watched YouTube constantly. I'd never watched TV. I watched it at school. I watched it at home. I watched a variety of things, but it was my entertainment, and it did kind of give me some escapism. But I also think that technology, which we've talked about on the podcast a little bit, both obviously has its great conveniences and pros, also definitely has its cons, especially with social media. But I think podcasts in particular and the internet had actually allowed me to grow and develop more as a person, to see different mindsets, personalities, backgrounds. And that was something me and Kelvin kind of talked about a little bit. And I love that, honestly, when we think about it, all my friends, we don't have a crazy amount in common. We all come from different backgrounds, and how we kind of accept life, but our personalities mesh well, I guess. But it's just, I like that we're so different, because I think that's something sometimes that people lack if you're just around very similar people sometimes. And I think that's great to have that diversity in a friend group. And I'm grateful for the friend group I have, and I hope to be friends with these guys for forever. But it's great when you finally find that group of friends that you feel like you're going to stick with for a long time. And it's a lot of fun. But I hope you guys did enjoy the episode with Kelvin. Wasn't necessarily structured. It was very last minute because Riley couldn't come, and I was like, oh, I need someone on the podcast. Let me ask Kelvin. He didn't make it to the live stream because he was doing military shit. Let me get him on here. He gets into his own like nerdy situations in himself that you obviously realize when it comes to certain TV shows or games, and he likes like backstories and stuff just as much as I do in certain instances. But it was a lot of fun to have him on. I'm excited for this live stream. I would love to have Freddie and them on eventually. But like I told you guys, I think we're going to try doing multicam here probably by the start of the new year, if not before. There's just going to be some changes in the future. Some things that we will announce once it gets closer. But no, I just hope you guys have had like a great past couple weeks. Sorry for the inconvenience of just not posting. I mean, you guys might not even notice, but hey, it eats me up. And even this coming late, I was like, I have to post something. I have to, because I can't not. It's just, it feels weird, especially when it's something you do weekly for a year and a half, pushing 2 years. It's weird not doing it. So that's why I'm on here. Like, this is just going to be kind of a one-on-one episode. Hasn't happened in a while, but I just want to talk to you guys. Let me think. What else is happening, or what is going on? Recently, I actually got into a new TV show. You guys might not care. Invincible. Not going to spend too much time on it. Start watching that. Obviously, it's not a new show. It's been out for a little bit, but the new season came out. Got interested. Very good show. Some people might not be into it. They might not be into that kind of show, but it's really interesting to see almost like a rated R, very gruesome comic book series brought to life in a TV show. Like it's like Avengers but on roids and rated R. Kind of in a way, kind of like Deadpool. Deadpool was kind of like one of the first superhero movies to do it. This is like one of the first TV shows. Obviously, The Boys is up there too. Obviously, like it's not animated. It's something I want to watch eventually. I mean, I think they're on like season 3 or 4, so I need to watch that sometime. But it was just kind of cool. And then not only that, but recently, yesterday, I listened to a podcast with Andrew Tate. And it's somebody we've never talked about on the podcast. I've never talked about him. Very interesting character. Obviously, very polarizing for some people. And not necessarily a super liked guy, depending on who you talk to. But he was actually on the podcast with George Janko, the guy that left Impulsive. I watch Impulsive every now and again. I actually watch it less after he left. It was very interesting. I've had mixed feelings about Logan Paul for years, but I thought honestly he's changed a lot and grown as a person and had made a lot of like good changes to kind of how he reacts to things. Like he was just, I feel like very, very, very self-centered for a long time, and I thought he kind of grew out of that. But honestly, watching his podcast, it was kind of disappointing to see that he almost resorted back. Especially when it came to the situation with George. If you guys don't know, he left. I haven't kept up on like his explanation to why he left, but I have a feeling part of it was being around such a toxic environment. Because there's multiple situations where on the podcast, Logan didn't necessarily he kind of berated him, but he disregarded George's beliefs. He's a Christian man, born and raised, I think, Christian, but has gotten more into the Bible, I think, over the past couple years and really into his religion. And basically, he didn't take his beliefs or words and actually listen to a lot of his conversations and take his belief seriously, or his faith. And it was very interesting to watch because it was just, especially for him supposedly being one of his best friends, to almost disregard his friend's feelings, beliefs, and mindset around certain things and almost label him just because he was a Christian. Like, he was basically saying that all Christians hate gays, all these different things and stuff like that, and almost putting a label on somebody or something. And that's the thing that I think some people just forget. Like, everybody is so complex. The world is so complex. Topics and decisions and political debates and sides are so complicated. I think some people just don't realize that. And it's like, okay, just because this group might have this label on them when it comes to, let's say, Christianity or even Democrat or Republican, it is not one-sided. It is not black and white, and it is not vague. Life is on a spectrum, and people don't realize that. Just because you believe one thing or you lean a certain direction on one thing doesn't mean that you're like everyone else that makes that decision. And it's like we've talked before, I think, when it comes to a lot of things that are very polarizing, it's the vocal minority that speak up. It might be the 5% of Republicans that are really speaking out on the far right and saying crazy shit, or vice versa with the left. And in all honesty, it's probably most people that are just don't care, maybe have differing opinions depending on the topic. And I feel like that was one thing he did to George that he didn't like. He almost put him in a box just off the fact that he was a Christian man. And I would hate that too, because I feel like that happened to me a little bit outside of high school. A lot of people kind of looked at me differently. Like one of my big things for a long time was I wanted to be abstinent, which, if you don't know, wait till marriage basically is that. And a lot of people just looked at me and talked to me. Like, there's a few people that I had great conversations with about, but when some people found that out, they found that wild and they did not understand it at all. But it's something that's hard to explain. And it actually leads to the beginning sparks of what built this podcast that I kind of related to Kelvin on the last episode. Was some of the conversations we had at my old job with some of my coworkers. Like, we were all about the same age and we were talking about this stuff, and one was definitely a lot more left leaning. One came from like all complete different backgrounds, not religious at all. And I can't say that my religious beliefs or faith has been slacking. I can definitely say that. But at the time, I was a lot more strict, I guess, in certain aspects. And they were just kind of shocked by my opinions. But at the same time, we were able to sit down and they asked me questions. And they were like, so why do you feel this way? What about this? What about like all these different things? Giving me hypotheticals or whatever. And just trying to really dig down to the roots. And I actually really appreciated it from those guys. Andrew, which is somebody I would love to get on this podcast still eventually. When I did try having him on, it just didn't work out, sadly. But he was one of those people, and we were able to have deep, meaningful conversations about why I felt that way and why they might not, and just kind of, and I do love that they respected my opinion on it, and they respected my choice at the time, and it is very, very genuine conversations. And I feel like, sadly, that's lacking in a lot of conversations today. And that's what I like. I just don't like when people just are very, what's the word? Not big, I guess sort of big-headed when it comes to things, and not actually want to have almost a very in-depth, like, intriguing conversation with someone. Because I think things can be so different. It's like you just got to question someone. And sometimes that questioning can bring out a lot to someone's character. And some people just don't dive and they stay surface level with someone. So it was very pleasing, especially fresh out of high school, being in a whole different area. Because, I moved, didn't know a single person. So the only people I knew and were friends with at the time were the people I worked with. And so it was really awesome that they did treat me that way, and it was great. And I think it kind of instilled something with me that I try to have that with most people. Like, I try not to judge. I try not to put labels on people as best as I can. And I'm not saying I don't, because everybody has that situation. Everybody has faults. Everybody does that. And I just try my best not to, because I don't want that to necessarily, I hate when that happens to me, and it has. And so I try to do the same thing with other people, where it's like I try not to be judgmental. I try not to have preconceived notions coming into a conversation. And when I do, half the time I'm very surprised. One of the guys I worked with, definitely not someone I would have hung around or been around or friends with in high school. Love the guy. Moved out to Arizona. He has a great life, I think, now, and his job is amazing. His name's Jay. And he had a bunch of tattoos, very eccentric. Like, he literally wore like a devil-faced hoodie with horns and would come in with his hair completely spiked and sorry, and all this stuff. And I don't think he dyed his hair, but all this stuff came off very what's the word? I guess strong-willed in certain aspects and not super approachable. But working with the guy, at one point working where it was just me and him for hours. I got to know him pretty well, and it's like me and him were close. We were pretty good friends. We loved working together. It was a great relationship, working relationship, and friendship. And so it was really cool to kind of see that. And it was one of the first times that it honestly ever happened to me in my life. I mean, I was 18, and so I think that's really awesome when you kind of get that first look at reality, where because when you grow up in a small town like I did, you're surrounded by the same people for years, and maybe there's mainly one point of view depending on the area you live when it comes to certain things, and you're not as accustomed to seeing certain types of people or how people react to certain things. And so it was really cool to kind of almost broaden my perspective at the time, because it was like, oh my gosh, like these people are so different. They've grown up in so many different situations where it's like I've never had friends at all like this. And so it was really cool to kind of expand my own perception of reality in a way on just people and life in general. So it was really cool, and that's kind of what I love about life. I love having those experiences with people. I love deep conversations. It's one reason why I have the Spark cards and stuff, and it's cool to be able to kind of get into those kind of conversations with people. And that's probably something we will kind of do on the next episode or episode on the live stream. But it was just a great time. But no, so listening, I guess I went on a rant. I'm sorry about that. But so basically he left George Janko left Impulsive, ended up going and starting his own podcast. And he somehow, I think this was just like a shout out on like saying, hey, Andrew Tate, I'd love to do like have an interview with you. He did it. He flew out to Romania, and he did 2 episodes. It was like a 3-hour plus conversation, very in-depth conversation. Like, because I've only mainly seen Andrew Tate in clips. Obviously, he seems very polarizing and aggressive and says very agitating things to certain people in particular. So it was really cool to actually see him sit down, and he's probably done it before, but just have a genuine conversation with people. And the thing is that it was nice to see that in certain situations, George actually called him out. He's like, why do you necessarily come across this way where you know the words you're saying and the stuff you are saying are going to cause a reaction, an angry reaction to people? You could have said it and said those same statements in so many different ways where it didn't come across as offensive to somebody, and they actually could have thought about it. And he's like, I think that honestly your next step, I mean, you did become the most Googled person in the world. You went to jail, like all this stuff. Like you're one of the most famous people in the world, and people recognize you, know your name all across the world. It's like you now, I think part of his journey that he's telling him is, I think you need to start to kind of change. And I feel like that will happen with you as you change and grow, and basically try to come across and get a larger audience just by doing that. And it was very interesting to talk about, and part of his thing is bringing back I guess a more masculine, populace in a way, in the sense of most men nowadays, especially young men, are kind of demeaned. That's not the right word. What's the word? In certain ways, masculinity has been suppressed in society. And I think that there is definitely positive and negative sides to masculinity at times. I've seen it. It's true. But it also does make sense, because men have become weak. And one of the very famous quotes is, strong men make... What is it? I think it's strong men make easy times make soft men make hard times. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But that's basically what it is. And I think that's it's very true. We had very strong generations in the early 1900s that basically set up the society and world we have today, especially in America, where things are great in comparison. Obviously, we still have our issues. Not going to deny that at all. It's never going to not be there. But it basically allowed men to become softer. And some of his 3 things that he did talk about in the podcast, which I do agree with, was that men should be stronger physically and mentally. He's like, exercise, get off the couch, become more successful, be basically, what was it? It was one, basically workout. There's no reason not to. It's great for you. It's great for your health. You'll discover so much more about yourself and the world by going through that journey and becoming physically fit and active and stronger as a man physically and mentally in that situation. And then he also said, two, become wealthy, which he basically said not necessarily that everybody needs millions of dollars, but in the journey to become a wealthy, successful man, you learn so many life lessons. And that by finding wealth and doing this, you learn how to connect and make money and do all these different things when it comes to business and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense too. And then three was basically build, build a brotherhood. That's what it was. And basically surround yourself with like-minded people and somebody that basically can push you just as much as you push them to elevate yourself. Be surrounded by a good group of men that push you and don't necessarily like degrade you and all these different things. And I was like, those three rules, very simple, but it could definitely bring a lot to a young man's life. And I feel like I definitely still have a long way to go on both of those all of those journeys, but I feel like the brotherhood aspect has definitely developed and grown for me a lot. I've definitely taken more accountability for my physical well-being and health way more in the past 3 years than I had my entire life. I still got a long way to go. There's no denying that. And I need to step up my game. And I recognize that in myself. And the wealth thing, it's like I'm trying to do that in some form or another. I want to learn. I want to do more. I want to be able to provide for myself, my family, and etc. So I think those three things actually made a lot of sense. It's very vague, but there's so much involved in those three statements that can have such a major impact on someone's journey through life, and hopefully positive impacts, because those three things aren't going to be negative in any fashion. They might bring up more challenges, and he even said, George asked him, has wealth caused problems? Like, does money buy you happiness? And he said, no, not necessarily. It does cause anxiety, and it causes a bunch of other stuff, and it causes stress, but at the same time, money can do so much for you, and it buys you time, and that's part of it. So it was really cool to kind of have him break down. And one of the things I also did talk about is one thing a lot of people do lack, it seems like nowadays, just in general, society as a whole, is self-reflection. And I definitely struggle with that fact at times. I feel like everybody judges themselves, but at one point it's actually looking deeper at it. Like, what's the core issues? What do you have to change? And I try to self-reflect. I try to be there's another word, but my brain just shut off. I had it literally a second ago. It basically allows for that. And I think he said, and he believes that that's very important for someone's growth and development throughout their life when it comes to building character and becoming successful, is being able to self-reflect on yourself and really dig deep into what's going on and what you need to change to make yourself better. And it's something I try to do, but I still lack. And I think the thing is, he even said he struggles with certain things, and I think everybody does. And that's one reason why the brotherhood thing was so important, is because almost having someone to push you and keep you on track. And I believe in that greatly. I think competition, someone that's willing to kind of push you, is very important to have in your life, especially another male. And I think it goes the same way with females. And having someone there to kind of push you in the same direction and hopefully want the best for you. And I think that's amazing. And that's what I hope to have and develop with Riley. And I think he feels the same when it comes to stuff for this podcast and just stuff in our life in general. And I mean, I like I said, I've already kind of seen him as a little brother in a lot of aspects, just being around him for as long as I have. And I think that's something that has been in the back of my mind for years, actually, with that aspect of things. So it was just a very deep conversation. It was very cool to kind of see a different side of Andrew Tate, almost like not a softer side, but a more, I feel like, genuine, constructive side of him. So if you guys, obviously, he's very polarizing, depending on who's watching and who's talking to I'm talking to right now. But I do encourage anybody that might be just interested in at least listening to Andrew Tate a little bit in this conversation to go to George Janko's podcast and listen to it. Those 2 episodes were very good, and it opened my mind to multiple things, and it kind of developed the character of Andrew Tate in a different way, because you only see the snippets, you only see the clips, you see the stuff that pisses people off, and everything. So you only get to see snippets of somebody, and so to actually really get to see him talk to somebody for multiple hours and understand him more as a person was very interesting and informational, I feel like, to understand his character a little more. But no, it's very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot, so I think you guys would too. But what else is there to talk about today? I was gonna go over just a few things, just because I was a little prepared, and obviously this was slightly last minute, as you guys might tell. I was just gonna go over what's some things going on in the news right now. So I've mentioned them before. Ride the News on Instagram, Roka News, amazing news source. I love them. Between them and Breaking Points, that's about all I do. I try not to pay attention to corporate media. I really don't. People that call it mainstream, they're not mainstream anymore, sadly. The amount of people that actually watch it is very, very low. And I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, corporate media is a detriment to society, because no matter what, they're trying to play some motive. Because guess what? They're funded by a lot of major corporations. So they're very biased to certain opinions and certain topics, and you don't actually get to the root cause of a lot of things. But what's going on? So Mickey Mouse for all. All right, so Mickey Mouse will enter the public domain on the 1st of 2024. U.S. copyright laws protected creative works such as films from being copied without the owner's permission for 95 years. After that point, they enter the public domain and anybody can use them. So on January 1st, the earliest version of Mickey Mouse from 1928, from the 1928 Steamboat Short Willie, is set to hit public domain. This means anybody can use that version of Mickey Mouse, with some caveats. Other characters going public next year include Minnie Mouse and Tigger. Interesting. I don't totally know exactly what that means for the company, but that's interesting. I didn't realize that the copyright law like that basically ended after 95 years, so that's something I did not realize. LA County releases cause of death. This is over Matthew Perry's death in particular. Toxicology report from the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office listed Friends star Matthew Perry's cause of death as acute effects of ketamine. Perry was found dead in a hot tub in Los Angeles at his home at 4 p.m. October 28th. Police saw no evidence of drugs or foul play at the scene. The toxicology report listed drowning, coronary artery disease, and the effect of butaphenamine, a drug used to treat opioid use disorder, as factors. Perry, who battled addiction for decades, was 54 when he died. That was actually kind of wild. That's never been brought up on this podcast, but it sucks. I mean, I know his backstory. I really want to read his book. I'm very interested in his biography. I think it's an autobiography. I'm not sure, but I really want to read his book because I am curious. Because I love Friends. It's probably one of my favorite shows. It's something that I think most people agree that it's one of those shows you can throw on in the background, doesn't matter what episode, and just kind of enjoy it, and it just kind of makes you feel good. It's one of those shows. It's a comfort show for sure. And so it does suck to lose one of those characters, especially at such a young age, because he brought a lot of joy to millions around the world. So it does suck. Mysterious intern letter. A letter signed by 40 White House interns demanding a Gaza ceasefire was written by an unidentified person, Politico reported. On December 5th, NBC News reported that 40-plus interns had written a letter to President Biden demanding a ceasefire. On Wednesday, Politico reported an unknown person named Tyra I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry. Joined the interns group chat, dropped the link to the signed letter, and then immediately left the chat. Interns signed the letter and told Politico they had no idea who they were. Interesting. AI meets news. OpenAI's big news. Media conglomerate Alex Springer struck a deal to allow OpenAI's chatbot to use its content. Ooh, okay. So the free version of ChatGPT has knowledge of events until January 2022, and the paid until April of 2023. In July, OpenAI signed a deal to Associated Press to use its news stories. Alex Springer, which owns Politico, Business Insider, and numerous other outlets, and OpenAI struck a deal on Wednesday to allow OpenAI to pull news from their outlets. OpenAI will include links to relevant news stories. The deal's financial terms are unannounced. So that is kind of cool because I've used ChatGPT here and there, so it is interesting to see. It is interesting to see that it only pulls so much information. So at this point, it's not like up to date live stuff. So that is interesting. So it'll be cool that it might be up to date with certain things and certain topics. So you might be able to ask it more relevant questions to shit that's going on right now. So that'll be very interesting. I wonder how that will actually affect and change the chatbot and kind of how it works. Netflix opens up. Ooh, Netflix. Oh, this is interesting. Netflix releases viewer data. Netflix releases its first ever report documenting how many hours viewers watched its titles. Netflix has faced pressure from investors and film professionals to be more transparent about what is being watched on their platform. It has resisted this, but it is starting to give in. On Tuesday, it released streaming data for 18,000 titles from January to June of 2023. 9 of 10 most viewed titles were Netflix originals. The most viewed was The Night Agent, a series released in March. That makes sense. That is very true. I've heard that from multiple sources in the past. Just even from comedians talking on Joe Rogan, where they're like, yeah, it sucks. You use Netflix. They don't tell you how good it is. They're very vague. It's like, oh, it's performing well. And that's like, what does that mean? Because they don't tell you any data. They don't show you how many people watched it. They don't tell you any numbers. So that is very interesting. So it honestly kind of depletes, negotiation power of possible comedians in particular, considering it's more single deals with the streaming platform compared to like shows or movies that end up on there, that you can't necessarily be like, hey, I know how well this did. I know how big my audience is and how much pull I have on Netflix. I want to ask for this on my next special. You can't really do that. So that's very interesting that they're actually starting to release some data, because I know they have kept a lot of their stuff hush-hush over the years. So it actually is pretty interesting that they're doing that. I guess when it comes to news of the war, Zelensky is in D.C. President, how old is this? Okay, only 2 days, so I'm not that off. Ukrainian President Zelensky met resistance from Republican lawmakers while visiting Washington, D.C. to break funding deadlocks. To date, Congress has allocated $111 billion to Ukraine. President Biden has called Congress to approve more. Republicans have resisted that, urging they will only do so in exchange for more border funding. On Tuesday, after meeting with Zelensky, Republican leaders mostly reaffirmed that position. In a press conference with Zelensky, President Biden accused Republicans of holding Ukraine hostage. We're already fighting a proxy war. We've sent $111 billion to your country, or at least maybe not physically, but in equipment and everything. That's a lot of money. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because, in all honesty, I think at this point everybody knows it. if other countries did not intervene in that fact, us mainly, the war probably would have been lost very close to the start. And now it's almost been going on for 2 years. So it's crazy that they keep asking for more money when there's so many things that need fixed here. And it's like there's so many people on the streets. There's so many people that can't get help here. Yet we're sending hundreds or 100+ billion to Ukraine. And it's kind of sad when you see something like that. Like, obviously, that is a crisis in itself. But sometimes you got to take care of things at home before you can help others. I mean, what is it on an airplane? Put your mask on before you put on someone else's. And I feel like the U.S. government has kind of been lacking when it comes to helping the American people as a whole. I mean, shit's expensive. I just saw something the other day for what was it? It was actually, it's Christmas themed. It was based on Home Alone, and it showed the price changes of how much he spent at the grocery store buying his items and what they would cost today. And I think in 1990, or I can't remember what year, maybe 2000, something along those lines, it was like $20 roughly. And then by 2022, it was like $42. And it talked about the median income in the U.S. at the time was $40K, now it's $80K, both basically doubled. Makes a lot of sense. Within 1 year, from 2022 to 2023, the same price for those items went from $44 to over $70, almost doubling it. It was like a 1.6 increase, 1.6 times in less than a year, and incomes have stayed the same. So it is kind of crazy to see that because, I mean, obviously food prices and grocery prices are ridiculous. I think everybody can see that and is feeling the effect of that. And as someone that tries to eat reasonably healthy and not buy a bunch of junk food, so I'm not buying the cheapest shit out there, I feel it in my wallet for sure. So that's very interesting that things have escalated so much when it comes to price. Hopefully something gets done to mitigate it. I don't know what that could be, but it's definitely a feeling and weighing on the pockets of the American people for sure. Obviously it's worse in certain states than others, but it's still crazy to think about. But not only that, I had one more topic of discussion before we end this episode. I didn't want to do it for too long, obviously. I just wanted to get something out there for you guys. But I just want to remind you guys, please check in on the live stream next week. Like and subscribe. Share the podcast with your friends. If there's any particular episodes, go back to some of the old ones. I feel like some of the old ones, honestly, were pretty good episodes every once in a while. Some were definitely 100% way better than others. I'm not going to deny that at all, especially when you're doing a podcast solo. It makes it reasonably difficult on trying to keep it either entertaining or informational and all that stuff. So cut me a little slack, guys. Come on. I'm trying to get more people on, and I got a co-host. He's just been busy. I don't know what to tell you guys, but please consider subscribing, sharing with your friends, and I appreciate it so much. But Joe Rogan had on, I can't remember the guy's name. Dude's been doing carnivore for 8 years. It was a very interesting conversation in general, but it just brings up the topic of I am probably doing carnivore during the month of January. Again, I did it last year. This year I want to do it a little better. I might not just do 100% meat, but definitely most of my diet is going to be from animal protein. So we'll see how it goes. I actually last year when I did it, I really wasn't in the gym. It definitely throws off your body for a while, 100%. And I think that's one thing I just got to struggle through for a bit. I think it's literally called like a meat flu almost, when your body's changing what it uses for energy and stuff like that, especially the first week or two, especially trying to hit the gym. And that's why I noticed it. And I was like, I just can't. And I'm like, in all honesty, I should still hit the gym as I do it. Might be more difficult, might be a little restricted for what I can do for first couple of weeks. But I do want to try it. I think there is something to having a very more potent animal protein diet in general. Just high protein in general is very, very major and important for you. But so I'm going to do that again. But he had a very interesting conversation when it came to the effects on the body, how it changes with inflammation, how there's actually so much more in meat than we realize when it comes to nutritional value, and that depending if you get the right sources of protein and meat, it is practically a superfood, and it's something that you got to think about. I mean, in society for thousands of years, meat was the most valuable source of food for a lot of things. Like, that was the thing societies and hunter-gatherers value more than anything is animal meat when it comes around. So I think there is something to that, but some of it that they talked about is like, people are like, oh, well, you can't get certain plant compounds. It's very bad when you don't have those things in your system, and can have long-term negative effects and stuff. And the thing is, I never thought about it, but it does make a lot of sense, is it's like that stuff's still in there, because guess what? The animal you ate is a herbivore. So guess what? It's been eating all these plants, has been getting all that nutrition, all those nutrients that come from plants is in the animal physically, because matter is not created or destroyed, it's just transformed. So it's like, you literally are what you eat. The same is said for animals. So if you're eating if you're getting grass-fed steaks, or you're eating elk and deer and all these different types of meats, you are also consuming the nutritional value of some of the same things that they consumed. And so that was very interesting to think about when it came to that, and how there's actually so much more, so many more compounds in meat and certain things. I can't get into it because I'm not a scientist, but found a meat that is actually overlooked. It hasn't been studied fully. So that's very interesting. But I will be doing that in January, hopefully a little more efficiently, I guess, than last year, and hopefully taking it a little more serious. I want to actually see how I feel. I think I definitely still consumed higher amounts of fat during that month than I probably needed to, just because I ate more bacon and eggs. But in general, I am gonna do that, and I think it'll be interesting. I'm excited for it. I've definitely grown to really love steaks. That was something I never really ate as a kid, but I've grown to appreciate. And last year was the main thing. I mean, I think at that point in my life, in particular, last January was the most amount of steaks I had eaten in my entire life. So it'll be interesting to do, but I'm excited for it and all that stuff. But I said but a lot. I'm so sorry. Every once in a while, my brain just shuts off, and I need time to recuperate. But also, I don't want to leave blank space for you. So that's what happens. Anyways, I guess that's probably going to call it for this week's episode. I hope you guys did enjoy, even though it was just me. And, I mean, I will see you guys before Christmas, but I'm going to say it anyways. I hope you guys have a great holiday. And please try to tune in to next week's live stream. I'll send it out on all platforms. I'll post it. I think we'll have a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. Get everybody on. Hopefully it's not quite as chaotic as the last stream, but I think we all enjoyed ourselves and had a great time, and I can't wait to do it again. But I hope you guys all have an amazing week, and we'll see you guys all in the next episode. Peace out, everybody.